Hey guys, it's Tyler. I wanted to make a video on something that I don't see people considering very often, at least in fantasy games, which is the appearance of the adventuring party or just the party player characters in general. And I don't mean this in, oh, how cool does your wizard look? Oh, how cool. No, I'm not talking about that. I mean, when the party shows up to a new town, shows up to the dreaded inn, but shows up to an inn for the first time, any public setting, what's their first impression? What sort of first impression do they leave? I particularly want to focus on the idea of weapons in non permissible environments here, which is a very modern way of saying if I went to the grocery store, or I just drove my car to the next town over, a town I've never been to, and the first thing people see is that I'm just sitting here like this. What are people gonna think? People are probably going to have several questions if they don't call the cops on me immediately, if they don't shoot me immediately. If it's a dangerous town, maybe there's some psychopath on the loose that's going cutting people up. And the first thing the town guards see when your fighter drenched in somebody's blood, because he's just killed, they've killed some bandits that they got attacked by, but nobody knows this. This is a town they've never been at. They show up, with a giant two-handed sword that has no practical purpose inside of a town. As soon as I go into, any reasonable building carrying this around, I can't really holster it. It's the same thing with the two-handed sword. I'm going to be banging into stuff all the time. I'm not dressed in hunter's clothing. I'm dressed in a jacket right now, but, if they're dressed in, full plate armor, full militaria, some people might think their town's being invaded for some reason. Uh, and this also goes along with the fighter dumping charisma, where it's like, okay, well, if your fighter did dump charisma and they've got they're terrible at explaining themselves, they could very easily end up in a lot of trouble with the law, as soon as they've walked into a town like this. So there's a consideration for the post fight cleanup. One, dressing down, getting into normal civilian clothing, not showing up like you're going to fight somebody. Maybe having, thinking of a place to store your sword. Historically, people would have been in swords fighting guilds so that they could have a reason to carry a sword around town. Oh, I'm going to sword practice, even if they're not. It's just a reason to carry it around. Um, so likewise with crossbows, you'd have, oh, I'm a hunter. It's like, okay. And then you never step foot outside the city that day. You're just carrying your crossbow around. um so there's a reason for you to have higher charisma, in order to put one over on the guards, or to just explain yourself, explain why it is you're here. Mostly though, I want to tackle this from the perspective of the GM though. You should be putting your players into tricky situations, and not just the fighter, but also if there's magic in the world, especially to a high degree, there's going to be ordinances on magic and that sort of thing. If you live in a world where maybe you're in a small village, most of your buildings are made out of wood, and any old wizard can go whoosh and cause fire to rain from the sky, or erupt from his hands or what have you. That's probably going to be something that people have controlled. Controlling weapons regulations and the like, these are not new. Weapons regulations have existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, so and they're all over the globe in every culture. So it would make sense too that they would exist in a fantasy setting as well. If they don't, perhaps you need to think about the ramifications of that. Maybe angry peasants at their houses constantly being burned down, marching to the city hall for the mayor's house, the lord, the baroness, whatever governance system you have to demand that these things be regulated. Um, so think about the consequences of appearing a certain way in your games, because people do they base a lot of stuff on appearance, especially if this is the appearance, right? Especially if this is the appearance, but even just carrying it around, that informs that informs a lot how a brand new person interacts with you. It also might mean, hey, uh, let's have some fun with not just picking. Very often, people play a game and go, "Well, why would I use anything that's not the great sword? Because the great sword does the most damage, or this weapon does the most damage, or why would I not just use a rapier? It's got the highest crit range." Well, guys walking around with a big sword, yeah, I know rapier's a one-handed sword, but it's rapiers are very long swords. I wish I had one here, but they can be about this long. They're gonna sit up to your sternum on the floor when you're standing. They're big weapons that are that have military and bodyguard application. If some rando you've never seen's walking around, with one on his hip, that's gonna be kind of, what's this guy doing? I'm gonna be a little antsier around him. Uh, Even still though, especially with your big two-handed pole arms and stuff that do the most damage, are probably going to have the best stuff. Maybe doing the most damage is not the most useful thing in the given situation, right? Like I said, even just barring appearances, maybe I need to do something with both of my hands. Maybe I need to climb a ladder, and I can't really holster this. If you have a big two-handed sword, it's the same thing. Maybe you need to open a door. If I have to open a door right in front of me, then all of a sudden, this is in the way. I can't easily bring it to bear. Same thing with a big two-handed sword. I wouldn't easily be able to bring that to bear on an opponent who was right in front of me in that door. So there's practical considerations that maybe the rules of your game don't consider that you should consider as a GM. But likewise, little light infantry axe, which is a little thicker than most combat axes, but thinner than a felling axe, lighter and handier. You could throw it. You could use it as a fighting axe, but in a pinch, right? Likely it is used, around the camp to, do some batoning, cut some, trim some logs to shape. Not cut logs, but trim them. So you could reasonably go into town with something like this and go, yeah, I mean, I just came out of, the woods from a decent journey. Yeah, I'm gonna get some firewood while we're in town. What, I can't carry this with me? Yeah, you can probably carry this with you. Then if you get into a scrap, either because you're intending to, which is why you're bringing weapons into the town, or because it's a strange place. You don't know what's going to happen. Somebody could try to mug you. Now you've got something that you can fight with, and likewise, open a door. I've got that right there. So, don't think, oh, this only does a d6 though. It only does a d6 and it doesn't do, everything that I need it to do. Well, okay, but, I'm specialized in swords though. I got a +1 with my swords. Okay, great, but, when you're getting into a fight, you don't get to choose all of the extenuating circumstances around that fight, right? There are things that you won't be able to choose. Maybe the wizard, they go through the checkpoint, they go, oh, sorry, can't let you bring fire spells into the town. Damn, okay. How is that enforced? If you have Vancian casting, if they already prepared their spells for the day, do they have to, keep an eye on you for the whole day? Just watching and waiting, and then 24 hours is up, then they They make sure you can only prepare from certain pages. Maybe they confiscate your spell book so you can burn through whatever you've got, but once you're out of your prepared spells, that's it. So, if you do end up going crazy, causing some damage, once you're done with it, they can get you no problem. Those are considerations, Maybe a wizard's spell store is less like a library and more like a modern day gun store, depending on the kinds of spells they're selling. Your wizard looks for fireball. That's not just oh yeah, the wizard down the street knows fireball. Maybe that becomes a, hey man, keep it down. I've got one. I've got a scroll behind the counter, but like, geez, they got other customers here. Don't be saying that shit out loud. Different ideas like that. Of course, knives. Maybe you're in a totally non-permissible environment. Maybe you're going to a theater. Maybe you're going. You've been invited to a hearing with a king or even a lord, and they don't want you having a bunch of weapons on you when you're going to a nice fancy dinner and getting very close to a high nobility. Well, are there screws in your setting? Because then there's probably a screwdriver. Even if there's not one in the area, you could use a leather awl, pretty much the same effect. That's very easy to palm away, and then just be, yeah, that's very interesting, ma'am. If you're playing a sort of dastardly fellow, or you just need to get close to somebody. How about a butter knife? There's a great X-ray of a guy who has I say great, it's kind of horrific, but is a butter knife stabbed all the way through the front of his head, so the strongest part of his skull. That's going to be like a one-time use sort of thing, probably, but, yep. Butter knife or an eating knife. Let's see, what else? Cast iron cookware, spoons, pans, anything that's got that kind of weight. Gonna be unwieldy, but will do. Fighting with your bare hands. Considerations for fighting with elbows and knees so that you don't break your hands or feet when you're trying to kick or punch somebody. Let's see, what else? I'm just looking around at what I've got here that a medieval person or a Renaissance person might have. How about a mug? Shatter this on somebody's head. It's probably not going to do a ton, but it might make them start bleeding, and then blood gets in their eyes and it makes them harder to fight. Or you shatter it on something, and now you've got a sharp piece of ceramic to start shivving with. Farm implements, you're going into a town, you're going to have, hoes and rakes, pitchforks, and the implements that would in some form or another. A threshing flail. Threshing flails for sure. If you're more Eastern, a rice threshing flail, which you probably know as a nunchuck. Yeah. So there's lots of considerations there for getting creative with the types of weapons you use and giving people more reason to not just use what is absolutely best and to focus on their appearance. So yeah, let me know if that's something you've thought about. If that's bothered you too, when you've got the people have just slayed a dragon. They're covered in who knows how much blood. They're walking back to town, a town they've never been in before. They've been in maybe once or twice. The guard shifts changed, and they're like, "Good Lord, what is? Hey, what's going on here?" Should be the reaction, but no, they're just let in. These psychopathic murderers for all they know. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. See ya.